Hello, Jack Davis here with a few topics associated with the new iPhone 12 and whether it's worth upgrading from something before the 11, from the 11. If you are going to get a 12, should you get the 12? Should you get the 12 Pro? Should you get the 12 Pro Max? We've got a lot more questions than we normally have in this time of year in terms of the iPhone's rev cycle. And if you're a passionate photographer, or just a giddy amateur that loves shooting with your iPhone, it's important to know what you're getting into. So let's just jump into a few topics that I thought would be pertinent based upon the Apple keynote. I have not gotten one of the 12s yet. Looking forward to it. But there's plenty to go on based upon not only what was at the keynote for the 12, but also what we know about what came in with the 11. And for a lot of you, you're going to be upgrading from the 10 or the 11. And so an understanding of what started with the computational photography in the 11 will help us when we get to talking about the 12. Okay, so some of the topics. Here's our lineup of what we have here. Apple is still selling the SE, the 10, the 11. All those are starting from $399, $499, $599. I wouldn't really bother with any of those if you're a photographer. So that leaves us with the 12 and the 12 Pros. And the only difference between the 12 and what they call the 12 mini is really the size of the phone and the screen. Really no difference to it. If you are a passionate photographer, probably just having a little bit of extra screen real estate will be worth it. So I'm not even going to consider the 12 mini, though the camera is exactly the same on the 12 mini as the 12. So if you really like that small form factor in terms of what you're actually shooting, there's no difference. Knock yourself out. Go with the mini and save $100 if you'd like. So then the question really is the $799 of the 12 versus the I don't know if you can see that, but big line said trash. Remember to take the trash out. Anyway, the between the 12 and the iPhone 12 Pro and the iPhone 12 Pro Max, which is actually going to be the main thing that I'm going to be talking about in this little video. So that's $799 versus the $999 for the Pro. Is it worth that extra $200 if you're a photographer? Let's go into some of the specs and see why I'm going to be pushing for the 12 Pro. First off, all of them have the 5G versus the 11. So let's actually start off with talking about that. If you've got an older phone, should you be upgrading at all at this current rev cycle? And so we'll start with that. 5G, that's obviously the speed for the cell band for downloading and uploading, dramatically faster if your city or location supports one of the three bands. The nice thing with the iPhone 12s is that they support all three of the potential bands for 5G. And so they're the only mobile phone, smartphone at this time that's supporting all three, which is great because each carrier has got a different way of implementing it. So to be honest, in terms of 5G, the only one that I would go with it would be an iPhone. I would not do Android unless you knew that your carrier was exactly what you wanted and you were going to stay with them for the life of the phone. Next, the iPhone 12 has a dramatically faster processor, which benefits everything, especially with graphics and photography. So no-brainer from that standpoint. You're going to get the dual lenses, even if you just go to the 12 or the 12 mini. So if you started with an iPhone that only had a single lens, you're now going to get both the 13 and the 26 millimeter wide and ultra wide, which will give you more range in terms of zoom. You're going to get a better portrait background blurring, what they call depth of field, the bokeh in the background, or bokeh. And that is significantly better than what it was in the past, both for the 11, if you even had the 11 or 11 Pro, you're going to be getting some better background blurring because of a number of the other things that are being upgraded. Better low light. We now have night mode, which you haven't had before if you weren't on anything other than a 11 Pro. If you were on the 11 or previous iPhones, you didn't have a night mode. And so that is just going to change your life. So that right there, for the price of admission, so to speak, just being able to have night mode, and in this case on both lenses, it's also a new feature. Even if you had 11 Pro, you only had night mode on the primary lens, the wide lens. That's huge. To be able to do night shooting with the ultra wide lens is fantastic. So better low light, night mode. New Smart HDR3, which is significantly better tonal range. You have Deep Fusion. If you haven't had the 11 Pro, you haven't had that. Deep Fusion on all lenses, all three lenses. If you've got a 3-lens one, as we've been talking about the 12 Pros. But Deep Fusion is where you're going to get your better detail. It's where it's shooting multiple shots and combining them not only for the tonal range by bracketing the exposures, but also stitching together the sharpest parts from different shots. Really some amazing technology there. And even on the 12 and 12 mini, you're going to have Dolby Vision video, HDR video, dramatically better color tone and low light. So if you shoot video at all, again, it's a no-brainer. Should you upgrade, even if you had an 11? Yes, definitely. If you had 11 Pro, should you upgrade to one of the 12s? Yes, because by definition, I'm talking to professional or passionate or giddy photographers. This is the cheapest thing that you could ever buy to enhance a year of your daily photographing. Why in the world would you compromise a few $100 for to not get the best that's out there? You can always, turn in your old iPhone, sell it on Craigslist. It's not costing you that much in the long run, from my standpoint. Okay, so jumping on. Again, these are our options here, the $699, $799. Hopefully I've talked you into at least the $799. Now we're talking about the Pro, the main one, or the Max, the $1099, the $999, or $1099. Typically in the past, the only difference between, say, the 11 Pro and the 11 Pro Max was the size of the screen and the overall phone. No difference whatsoever in the camera. That has now changed. It's not just form factor, it's actually a different camera setup, especially on the wide lens. Significantly different camera setup. So that's why I want to talk about it. This is what got me all excited about this topic to begin with, because it's not just, well, I like something that fits in my pocket a little bit easier. If you want the best camera, you will be going for the 12 Pro Max. Let me talk to you about that. So the topic is the benefits of the 12 Pro versus the regular 12. We've been saying that you should definitely do the 12. What about just getting the 12 and not getting the Max? You do have the benefit as you move to the 12 Pro. You're going to get the added telephoto lens, definitely a better telephoto lens. We'll talk about that in a second. You're going to get the LiDAR sensor, the light sensing additional sensor that is going to allow for faster focus and therefore faster shooting. Your shot-to-shot shooting will be faster, especially in low light, because your focus will be dramatically faster because of this ability to use light radar, as it were, to calculate the distance to the subject matter. And with that, you're also going to get better depth of field. This blurry background bokeh effect is going to be much better. You're also going to have the ability to access Apple ProRAW file format. This is the first time that this technology has been in existence. It'll come out later in the fall, winter, before the end of the year, Apple says. Basically, it'll take their HDR technology and their Deep Fusion technology and be able to save that into a RAW file format. That is huge. That is potentially groundbreaking. Even though Adobe, with their Lightroom Mobile, has been able to allow you to shoot HDR RAW directly on the mobile app, which is great. One of the first times that's been done. Typically, when you shoot an HDR in your DSLR big boy or big girl camera, you're end up with a JPEG. It is flattening it down. It's not keeping it raw. So for it to be able to keep a raw file in HDR has been fantastic. They can also do that with their long exposure technology. These are things that Adobe has done, taking advantage of the power of the smartphones. Now you're not only going to be able to do bracketing, but you're going to also be able to do this very specific HDR3, which knows sky versus skin versus detail versus shadow versus highlight, and save that in a raw file format. Also the deep fusion, which is doing different shots to maximize the detail in a file. That will also be part of this Apple ProRAW file format. And also, as I have down here, this will support an open API, which means that people like Adobe, our beloved Adobe, will be able to access that information and support it, and other app manufacturers as well. Absolutely fantastic. Again, worth the price of admission. These three things here, again, to go to the 12 Pro is worth the price of admission. You get the extra lens, you're going to get LiDAR, and you're also going to get Apple ProRAW. Now, what does the Max add to this equation? Like I said, before in the past, it's only been a situation of a different form factor, a bigger or smaller camera, if you went for a 12 regular or Max or 11 Max. In this case, what Apple has done is they have actually put in, for the first time, a larger sensor on one of their lenses, specifically the primary, what they call the wide lens, the 26mm wide lens. A 46% larger sensor on that wide lens, which equates to 87% better low light than in the previous camera, previous iPhone. That is huge, actually. Previous on the 12 versus the 12 Pro versus the 12 Pro Max. Yes, it does get a little confusing. The 12 Pro Max has 87% better low light capabilities because of, one, this dramatically larger sensor. And then two, next to that is they have come up with a new way of doing image stabilization, where they're shifting the sensor rather than shifting the lens. That also is huge, and that should allow for another at least 2 stops of light coming in. And in terms of hand holding, not taking into account the technology, just hand holding it with this new stabilization method, they said you should be able to get 2 to 3 seconds even without using night mode and get a stable image. It's not quite clear from everything that I've been able to access whether they're using both the shifting of the sensor as well as the old lens stabilization. In some of their documents, they have dual image stabilization, which seems to say that they are adding the sensor shift on top of the lens shift, optical image stabilization, iOS. And that would make sense for what they're saying, the dramatic improvement on low light capabilities for that lens. Either way, that is dramatic. For the main lens on the phone to be able to have 87% better low light and the bigger pixels associated with the larger sensor is huge. Also, the telephoto lens is not the same on the Max. It is now a 65 versus a 52mm. And for those of you who have shot portrait, you know that that extra little length when it comes to the zoom is going to minimize the distortion of a person's face. The wider the angle, the more you're going to distort the face. Also, the closer you're going to have to get to the person, and by getting into their face, you're now intruding in that space, and it's harder to get, that comfortable feeling from that person. So that little bit of extra telephoto, it's significant. 65 versus 52 is actually a significant increase in the telephoto nature of the lens. Will give you less facial distortion, and it will also allow you to step back a little bit further and not intrude on your subject matter. It'll also just give you a better telephoto if you're trying to zoom in on something. So that is worth the price of admission right there. They're calling it a 6x optical zoom versus the 12s is a 5x optical zoom. Both all the cameras will do a 10x digital zoom, but obviously with a larger optical zoom to begin with, the digital zoom on the 12 Pro Max will also be better. And obviously you also have the larger screen real estate with the bigger Max, which in the long run is, a good thing. So let's wrap this up with a little review. We have the different sizes of the iPhone 12 versus the 12 Max. You can see here the comparison to the 11 if you're upgrading from that. It is about 3/4 of an inch bigger, the 12 Pro Max, than the 12 Pro. So if your pocket is a limited size, you're going to have to consider that. But overall, it's not a dramatic increase to the actual size of the device, but we've picked up a very nice screen increase. As mentioned, the LiDAR is going to be awesome. As it says here, up to 6 times faster autofocus in low light, and the additional benefits of the beautiful blurred background, our bokeh. And night mode portraits for the first time. Again, LiDAR, not even to mention all the augmented reality benefits that we're going to get with gaming and measuring and 3D mapping of rooms. There's going to be a million things that are going to be possible with LiDAR. But for photography, just our faster shooting, our better focusing, and better background blur, imitation of shallow depth of field is going to be awesome. As mentioned, the Apple ProRAW that is available on the 12 Pros, both of them, is going to be absolutely insane, absolutely fantastic to combine the computational photography of both HDR3 and Deep Fusion into a RAW file format, especially since that comes with an open API where people like Adobe can take advantage of that and push it even further. Video, I already mentioned that the ability to shoot Dolby Vision and edit it. The iPhone 12 Pros will both allow you to edit that video 10-bit, high bit depth Dolby Vision on the phone directly. It looks like the regular 12s will not allow you to edit it. You can shoot it, but you'll have to bring it to your desktop to edit it. So again, that is just fantastic. Here are specifically those specs. Here you can see the larger sensor, 47% larger sensor, 1.7 nanometer pixels, and 1.7 micron pixels, sorry, and the largest one they've ever put into a phone, which is really great, with the benefit of the new optical image stabilization and the larger sensor, 87% low light improvement, nothing to sneeze at. And again, an overview of the 3 cameras in between the 12 and the 12 Pro Max. Ultra wide, no difference. That main wide lens that I mentioned is where you're going to get the larger sensor and the new optical image stabilization. And then on the telephoto is where you gain the 65 millimeter telephoto lens. You do lose 0.2 f-stops of aperture, but in the big picture, I think it's worth it. That extra range, less facial distortion, is worth a little bit of less light gathering, especially with everything else they've done to improve overall low light. I think it's certainly worth it. So there you have it. There's the main differences in there: the larger optical zoom, better low light, bigger pixels, and the new image stabilization. Here's an overview of all the new features in the 12s versus the previous iPhones. It's a long laundry list. I wouldn't hesitate to upgrade to a phone. Pick any of the 12s, but if you're me, then I'm going to go straight for the 12 Pro Max. It's the cheapest, fulfillment of an addiction that you could possibly get. Way cheaper than a Lamborghini or any other vice you may have. So there you have it. The benefits of what Apple has brought to the table with the new iPhone 12, 12 Pro, 12 Pro Max. No matter what, it's a fantastic piece of tech that I think is going to make you all giddy with the capabilities that we have at our disposal. One thing I haven't mentioned, one of the things that I'm excited about teaching in terms of these new things is with all this new added light capabilities, the ability to do things like shoot infrared on a mobile phone, specifically an iPhone. It's already possible on the 11 Pro. Myself and Rad Drew have a class coming up on infrared on the iPhone. We're waiting for a full day seminar once we get the 12 Pro Maxes in our hand, because what that's going to allow for all sorts of low light, but especially infrared photography on a mobile device is going to be absolutely mind-boggling. So stay tuned for things like that. Anyway, thanks a lot. This is part of a series of videos. I'm actually on the road right now, and so I'm sorry I'm not in the studio and it's such awful sound and video quality. But soon I'll be doing a lot more videos, and you can find those at jackdavishowtowow.com. As you can see there at the bottom, jackdavishowtowow.com. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. Talk to you later.